Hello, viewers. Thank you for joining us. This year, we carefully crafted thematic stages to cast a spotlight on three key themes. Here is our first session on founders. We hope you enjoy it.
One of the things you need to understand is how do you claw back your equity if things don't go right? It's important when you're raising capital and looking at your financial options to line up the milestones of growth, your revenue projections, and what happens if the VC or the financing that you're expecting has a disruptive impact to your business goals. We went through that once before. It's a mistake I'll definitely share with you. So if you want to figure out either on a spreadsheet or anything else, when you're looking at VC capital, create scenarios where you can have that conversation about what happens if my investor misses their mark, or if we have titrated and tranched investment. At what point do we have drawdowns? At what point do the milestones kick in? And what will the cost of that capital be as you go through that phase? And when are the conversion incidences, so that you're very clear on the value of the company at every stage. So that's a conversation that is almost as painful as having a conversation about money with family, but you got to be able to do it and do it very, very clearly and very well. You've also got your angel investment, which I should have started with, and money from well-wishers. People call them friends and fools, or family and fools, which is quite derogatory, because these individuals are actually making their investment based on their belief in you and your ability to succeed, versus anything about revenue, because you are definitely pre-money at this time. This is the sort of capital that you have to be very clear that it's very likely it's not going to be coming back. But in you're thinking about it from the sandbox standpoint, you need to model how much of that do you need and for how long before you make the right marketing decisions, announcements, and work with your teams to say, we're beyond angel investing now. And that brings me to the next point. When is the best time to raise capital? And the answer is right after you've closed capital. It's better to have something to say no to than be looking around because you've had to pivot and you did not build out what that scenario would look like if what your original plan for revenue generation should change abruptly. Part of today's conversation is to share our experiences, because our experiences are what led us to how we deliver our services to guys like yourself. We went from wanting to do diaspora investments so that we could co-fund with microfinance institutions, but it was too slow to scale. And that is how we ended up in a circuitous way to doing trade. Looking for debt capital for trade is very different from looking for capital to just hopefully experiment your way to where you think your business thesis is going to be. That is the sort of thing that when we've hosted Live Sandbox, we've sat down with regulators and asked them questions around the tax impact of that sort of thing, or going to lawyers, especially for the African reality, and realizing when you're a startup, a tech startup, the much of what you're doing is not taught in schools, and some of it doesn't fit within the legal frameworks of emerging markets. So you actually have to take the lead with your legal support, which might put you outside of your comfort zone. But make sure you research, you look around, you speak to whoever is in your hub or your incubator, take a look at similar models in other places, figure out how much it will cost you to get your lawyer to spend that time to humbly follow your lead versus turn around and say, well, this is what the law says. Sometimes what the law says is totally inapplicable to what you're doing. You're going to have to create precedents. And it is so important that you document that to prove your point, because when you get to the next phase, which is Series A, you're going to have to show how you got there and why it's relevant in markets where perhaps your structure is not regulated or understood by the regulator. Since all of that has happened, Ovamba has come up with other ways in which to help start up business who are involved in fast-moving consumable goods. That might not be you, but you might be able to take some examples of what we've done and apply it in your market. The safest way for us to fund businesses is in such a way that the fear of loss is on a win-win basis. Ovamba uses a lot of Islamic finance structures, which I would encourage all of you to take a look at, because we are actually looking at partnering with a very large Islamic institution to do Islamic type sandboxes to help those that sit within that interesting space between conventional and alternative. And it's very ethical. So things like equipment financing is a great way for a startup to look at ways in which to get capital in. It may not be as liquid as you think, but having the ability for somebody to extend their capital to buy the equipment that you need for your startup and give you the opportunity to buy it over a period of time has a positive impact on your cash flow. And cash flow is king. If you don't have a handle on it, you will fizzle and fall out. Luckily, Ovamba is able to help businesses with this by using our mobile app, Ovamba Plus, in order for you to apply for a transaction. Now, I must admit, we only do this in the countries where we're operating, but luckily, we have an authorized reseller program where we take on partners who will take our technology in order to do funding in their own markets and can use our own technology to drive their own growth. And we raise capital from investors and we'll be able to fund those types of transactions in that market. So capital for startups in the sandbox is all about risk recognition, risk management, cash flow management, and that takes me to another product that might be of interest to you. We don't do this in particular, but you might be able to structure this conversation. There are groups out there in the real estate space right now who can come along and say, as a startup, you need office space and you might not have the capital to pay office rental, which can take up a large part of your budget. However, we can provide you with housing, let's say close to Silicon Valley, and office space that we pay for in exchange for an equity slice from you. That gives you as much space as you need to develop and get your momentum going. Similar to the way in which Amazon services, AWS, is able to give credits to startups so that they've got the capital that you would earmark for all of your storage and cloud space. You can now say, I've got line of sight for the next 1 year because I'm a partner with Amazon. So taking these kind of esoteric, almost barter type structures is a fantastic way in which you can scenario build what would it be like if you can figure out angel investment capital so that you've got salary for yourself, which from a social standpoint, you can combine with, let's say, VC capital for operations, and then look at how much does it cost for a line of credit from your bank. Probably horrific, don't touch it, unless that bank is truly invested in the startup space. Places where you might find that to be the truth, Rwanda, Nigeria, South Africa, Botswana, potentially. Or partnering on the license of banks and microfinance institutions so that you can practice, and it's almost like a sandbox within a sandbox, have them use your product so that you've got use cases to drive the value of your company up so that when you go out and raise capital again, you can actually demand a cheaper cost of capital versus the size of the capital pot that you're looking for. That's not something that Ovamba provides, but we can definitely sit down and talk to those businesses, because if you're succeeding at that level, by the time you get to the growth stage, or you are now looking to get into cross-border trade within the African environment, Ovamba can be there for some of these trade-based or ethical cash flow management products that will make sense for you. Larry, am I making sense so far?
Yeah. So Viola, if I could jump in, I mean, you're making so much sense. I like why you talked about how cash is king and how you need, that working capital for your cash flow operations. So, for most of these companies, they have just some sort of early stage financing, and they just have a few operations, and all they need is that kind of working capital. What we've found is that we are moving towards, and investors are also asking for this, we are moving towards a revenue-based financing model with some of the documents that we've pioneered called the Shield. But what we found is that investors are comfortable with those revenue-based financing models. How can someone tie into that? If you're in a position, if I'm a startup, I have my products and I'm making some bit of capital, rather cash from them. How can I tie into your ecosystem to benefit from this?
It all depends the sector that you're in. As I said at the very beginning, Ovamba is not an equity player, at least not at this moment in time. Could be in the future. And Ovamba is not a lender. We fund transactions. So we look at creative ways to make capital possible. The best way to tie into our ecosystem is to reach out to us either directly or through social media or using our app and waiting, unfortunately, to see what new products that we come out with, which is all based on our partnerships. Just like the rest of you, even though we're 8 years old, we stay very close to the startup and the sandbox communities because there are sources of customer base that allow us to figure out where the gaps are in the market that we're going to do our next innovations or technology development for. So those are those. I also have often said that it is incumbent upon the businesses like ourselves who've been fortunate enough to get past the watershed mark of 3 years, 5 years, and now we're 8 years old, to advise startups, not on a paid basis, but because the ecosystem needs to stay healthy with that pipeline of new businesses surviving. So the best way to tie into us is I'm easy to speak to, reach out directly. If I don't know something, I can point you in the right direction. If I feel that some sort of, I wouldn't say a lien, but a hold over something that is of value is a way in which for you to mortgage back a product, which we've done with land, houses, moving vehicles, and moving assets. In order for you to drive a short-term gap in capital, we can sometimes consider that. And as we get a little bolder and we see the African Continental Free Trade Agreement beginning to take reality, it will get easier and easier to do that on a remote digital cross-border basis. I believe in driving the ecosystem in that direction.
Okay. So, Viola, like I mentioned, the first part was to introduce what the session would be about. So we have some few founders here. I can see Joseph from Research Beeline. Joseph, would you like to introduce yourself and see how your company could plug into this ecosystem and the wealth of knowledge that Olivia would bring? You never know. We might think of a new model that works for your company right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me put my camera on. Yeah. Thank you so much for that introduction. And Viola, you're doing a great job. And
I've seen you on a conference call before, Joseph. Nice to see you again.
Okay, thank you. Now, when you're talking about, raising capital, and especially for startups like ourselves in, I don't know, I think there are areas of those who operate in specific areas that are more fundable than others. We are in education technology.
Technology.
Yeah, and more so higher education. So we are not in these apps for, that has become very popular, especially during these lockdown times of taking classes online. No, we are in quite a unique area of research funding. It is not, I don't think it's a very common area. And I don't think a lot of people are doing investment in that field. And our experience with trying to raise capital has been quite frustrating in a lot of ways. And we are based in Kenya. Our target market is an entire continent of Africa. And so we started with like you shared, actually we started with co-founders capital. We put in money with my partner. Then we invited a few friends. And then as we grow, we did not actually think we would need to raise capital. but it came to a point where we realized we've got to get out and put in more money. We were actually relying on sales to really try to do everything. But it came to a point where we realized we've got to raise, especially after COVID and our cash flow was interrupted. But now moving one step forward has been very, very difficult. I think we've had a very frustrating journey from trying to get angel investors to be interested in us, trying to get into accelerators, even getting people to talk about it like we are doing here has been very difficult. So I think that's my short experience, and I'm looking forward to really try to see if there are newer ways or better ways that we are not aware.
Let me ask you a quick question. You're in edutech and you said it's higher education?
Yes.
What is the niche area within that we're talking about? Is it a science?
We are into research funding.
Research funding?
Yes, across all areas of research.
For what sector? Agribusiness? Or
all areas, as long as our target market is research institutes and universities.
Okay.
Actually, we go for institutional subscriptions rather than individual subscriptions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joseph, I just have a request that will help Viola answer this question. Joseph, could you kind of give us a brief snapshot of how your solution works and what exactly you do?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, okay. So that Viola we can all chip in.
Okay. What we have are digital or online platforms that support researchers to identify research funding opportunities. So we curate opportunity calls from global grant makers, funders from across the globe. We have a team of curators, we have the crawlers, and we are able to put all the available funding opportunities available for African researchers in one platform. What this does for anybody looking for money based in Africa or collaboration opportunities, they just need to log in to the platform. And if your research is in the area of agriculture economics, you'll be able to go to the platform and see all available opportunities from different funders. And now you know where you need to put your proposal. And the purpose of making this is, doing this is to make it very easy for researchers in Africa to do research, because at the moment, funding has been identified to be the biggest problem that researchers are facing in Africa.
If it was me, the first thing I would do, I would, if I was at the beginning of the journey, and we've done this in the past, the informal savings groups like the SACCOs, there may be individuals that that would be interested in that. So you may or may not have done that. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. But after that, what you're describing is a social capital play. It's not really a traditional aggressive kind of money. So when you start looking at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the BMW Foundation, all of the motor cars all have foundations that look at this sort of thing. And the reason for that is they are looking for ways in which to counter some of the damage that their businesses do in the environment. So if you have areas of the research that relate to automotive, oil and gas, or anything like that, every time you start to see a new tranche of individual looking for research, you should consistently go after the groups in those sectors. You're also looking at ways in which to get grants, Rockefeller grants, and all of these other places where you can also find out any large libraries, how are they being funded? Is there a way for you to create a revenue share on the IP that is developed from the research that some of these fellows and applicants are coming for? So if you start to look at your revenue as this number of prominent professors use our platform and the information contributes towards the development of a product, an idea, or some intellectual property that you can start to attach to, you can start to develop some sort of a value for what the value of the platform that you're providing. So I would, if I were you, I would look at social capital opportunities. of which there are plenty in San Francisco. I would look at the grant makers, and I would do a deep analysis as to what kind of research is being pursued on your platform and seek grants from those in the industry that provide services in those sectors. Joseph, is that helpful as an idea? There is no cut and dry answer for what you're looking for. You will have to experiment and use IP as part of the attraction.
Yeah, it's a new line of new stream, I would say. But what we were looking at is a kind of money that can allow us to, scale. There are a lot of new, markets we need to reach, and I can say that our product has reached a point where we feel we need to go beyond the markets we have in traditional.
Sounds like
funding.
Universities are a natural partner for you, and libraries are a natural partner for you, and foundations whose end goal and mandate relates to any of the areas that you see people using your platform for. And it's a case of basically looking for grants versus anything that has a high repayment, because I don't know what your cash flow or your sales cycle is, or how people pay for the subscription, but I would imagine that it means the predictability of your revenue could be difficult in the beginning until it reaches a certain critical mass. So you're really looking at social capital. I would encourage you, if you haven't already, you probably know more than I do, to take a look at where that kind of patient money is coming from. But let me ask you another question, Joseph. Do you have any women on your board or in your senior management suite?
Yeah, we have one.
You have how many?
We are two founders, and we have one in top management.
Okay, don't forget, right now, Black women are a market on their own. It's important from a diversity standpoint for attracting capital. A lot of groups, they might not say anything, but if you don't have a female complement that meets maybe 25% of your management team, you miss out on some of the special earmarked capital. That does not mean that you go out and you just grab a bunch of chicks to join your company. Make sure that they're competent and they're smart. But do definitely leverage the fact that investing in women is a big opportunity.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're most welcome. Larry, are you speaking? Because I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Wow, Viola, that's a cocktail of a bunch of, insightful ideas there. I mean, have some women, think of a hybrid grant model together with, leverage your IP if there is any in the beginning. That sounds like an exciting model. And they'll be looking at those models. These tools are supposed to help them think of a model that might work for them, for their capstone projects. I can see here we also have another founder from Gabon. I think he's called Llewellyn. Llewellyn, sorry to just jump onto you because you just joined the room, but yeah. So Llewellyn, you found us giving a chance to founders now to a good way to start is to pitch your idea, to tell us exactly what you do. And then the experts here, Viola and ourselves, are trying to think of a model that might work for you. You never know, you might even identify an opportunity that might help with the funding. We want to think differently beyond VC funding and angel funding today. So that's what Viola was discussing.
And Larry and Raymond, I think it's really important for me to say, and Larry, you know this because of the work that we're doing in other areas, that we're going through a massive pivot at the moment. And in light of COVID, the countries where we have been generating our deal flow are Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Mauritius, and soon to be here in the United States, and recently through a partnership in Egypt, and soon a partnership potentially in Sudan and Mali. On account of that, if anybody is on this call today thinking that I'm going to come and fund them, I have to say that is not going to happen at present. What I'm doing here from the sandbox standpoint is ideation. With you being able to say, I'm going to come back to Ovamba, or Ovamba will know how to come back to you once we finish some of these pivots, if it meets. But if you see any value in the fact that the advice I'm giving you don't have to pay for, I hope that that goes to your bottom line. Is that okay to make that proviso right up front?
Yeah, it's perfectly clear, Viola. The idea here is, for the founders that are here, is to think through a model that might work for you. And that's why we're bringing all these experts in the deal room. So to see what opportunities might be there to kind of open your eyes. And I think Viola's put that very, very properly. So as asking Jinosin to talk about his startup briefly, and then maybe, you could take it from there, Viola, and we see how we can build a model that might work.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Jean Arsène, and Jean Arsène Oula Oula, and I belong to a country where we speak French. It's very difficult for me to speak in English, but I try. Okay. Okay. I'll let you Viola, I listen to you.
Bonjour. Je ne parle pas français, mais si je parle pas vite, c'est possible. Moi, je parle franglais, c'est le combiné mixte. So, s'il vous plaît, essayez un peu en anglais, en français, c'est bon à moi.
Ok, ça marche. Donc, my project is Webcars. Webcars is short car pooling services that we develop in Libreville, because people have a lot of problem to go to the. Bon, je vais aller en français. Donc, nous développons en fait un projet sur le covoiturage. Pourquoi? Parce qu'en fait, on a rencontré trois sortes de problèmes. Donc, il y a le problème lié à l'insécurité, il y a le problème lié, on va dire quoi, au stress, dû au fait qu'il y a, comment on appelle, on va dire, un nombre très insuffisant de moyens de transport sur Libreville. Donc, ça fait que les gens sont obligés de se lever tôt le matin pour avoir un transport pour leur permettre de pouvoir partir à leur travail. Et souvent, ça crée du stress.
Attends un peu. En anglais, ça c'est ride sharing?
Yes. Short car pooling. Short car pooling.
S'il vous plaît, écrivez en le chat.
Okay.
And also, Viola, just to say here, we have people on the team that speak French. So if you need someone to help you out.
The line is a little cracky, but I think I understand. If somebody can make sure I've understood him, or write in the chat, it sounds like he's talking about community vehicles and ride sharing. I happen to know, he said short carpooling service. Libreville, that's Gabon, right?
Yes.
Oui.
Donc je reviens en français. Je vais parler.
When you say short carpooling service, what does that mean? Is it like temporary?
Ok, non. C'est une forme de transport en fait qui est de type domicile-travail, travail-domicile, domicile-études, études-domicile. Donc c'est plus précisément pour les personnes qui travaillent et pour les personnes qui vont soit à l'université ou à l'école. Donc c'est pour leur permettre en fait de pouvoir se déplacer tous les matins, ceux qui n'ont pas de voiture, de pouvoir trouver des personnes qui ont des voitures et aller justement, et qui habitent le même périmètre pour aller dans aussi un même périmètre. Imaginons par exemple, moi ici, il y a plusieurs quartiers au Gabon. Donc, il y a des personnes qui habitent, par exemple, le nord de Libreville et qui veulent aller au centre-ville. Donc, notre service, en fait, leur permet, via notre application, donc, de pouvoir trouver un transporteur au nord de Libreville et qui va aussi au centre-ville. Donc, c'est l'application que nous avons développée parce que nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'il y a un nombre de personnes qui ont du mal à se déplacer à Libreville à cause non seulement des embouteillages et dû au fait que le nombre de transports est très, très réduit, en fait.
Okay. So Viola,
I've never heard anything so brilliant. That is absolutely clever. First of all, félicitations.
Merci.
It's very creative.
Thank you.
When did you start this?
I don't understand.
Okay. The first thing I think about for raising capital like this is actually it's been existing for a long time. you've basically done exactly what Africans do when figuring out whether or not they can trust somebody in money. So they go to their Sakos or Njangi or Tontine, okay? You know these individuals, so if somebody introduces them, there's a level of trust with them. That means that your sources of capital are, and we did something very similar in Cameroon, but we were doing it for our GPS systems. So if you go to, let's say, one school in an area, and you figure out you've got the list of all of the children, or let's say all of the teachers, and then you get them to do either gamified questionnaires in order to figure out who else they know, you get to open up your relationship pool. These kinds of businesses, they attract money based on how many users you can attract and how many users you can keep. I think this is a really brilliant idea, and it lends itself very well to the informal sector for capital, which would be a friends and family. Compris?
Yes, j'ai bien compris.
Yeah, that's a friends and family type thing. And I actually would go to the insurance companies. In Central Africa, in the CIMAC region, you guys may not know this, there are two forms of capital that will eventually become accessible, or they may be right now. The first one is insurance companies get fined so many times because they're not investing as they're supposed to, their float capital into the businesses in the area. If an insurance company is working with AXA or any of the other car insurance companies, going to them and asking them if they want to be able to revenue share with you in a model like this could be a new and exciting way for them to solve that problem. So you might want to try that. That's the first one, okay?
Yeah. Viola, just a few things here. I was wondering, maybe is Jinasin still there?
Yes, I'm there.
Do you need a part of what Viola said to be translated? Because like I said, on the team, we have someone for that, or everything is clear.
Can you repeat?
Sure. I'm saying, first one, friends and les tontines. That's a good place to start. Number two, you want to create a very large group of potential users so that investors can see the potential for revenue. Number three, speak to the insurance companies, especially those and those that are financing the leasing of vehicles. They may be interested in a revenue sharing opportunity of this nature, because insurance companies in the CIMAC region, Central Africa, they pay very large fines because they are supposed to, by law, invest in small and medium enterprises in the community from the float money that they get from premiums. If you go to them and you say, we are charging customers to share in these types of car sharing opportunities, would you be interested in revenue sharing with us by investing? They might be interested in something of that nature. You also want to go to the Department of Transportation. Maybe you might have to think about that. In some developed nations, this would be a no-brainer, but we know that in our region, if you go to a ministry like that, they will start to try to create rules to stop you versus helping you. So that could be a great way to partner with either private bus systems in the region. I'm sorry. That might be a way in which to partner with private bus systems in the region, or with other taxi providers, or with leasing agencies. If you have a personal relationship with any of them, you might be able to speak with them and see whether or not they would be interested in investing in what you're doing. Have you already had some proof of concept? Are people using your system?
Yes, today we have 153 people that use our services. And I think that what we need today is is communication, mass communication about our product, because we have some people that use today our application and that use our bon, je vais peut-être dire en français. Donc aujourd'hui, on a des personnes qui utilisent notre service, que ce soit par les réseaux sociaux, que ce soit par l'application que nous avons développée, et qui passent aussi par notre site internet pour voir en fait ce que nous faisons au quotidien. Mais en fait, ce dont nous avons réellement besoin aujourd'hui, c'est beaucoup plus de communication pour déjà capter le grand public. Et nous avons aussi une autre stratégie que nous avons développée. La stratégie vise à aller. Vous m'écoutez? You hear me?
Il y a beaucoup de
Yes.
Le ligne, c'est le réseau, c'est mal.
Certainement.
If somebody can just say it in English or type it, I should be okay.
Vous m'écoutez là?
Yeah. So there's a trust Kavano. He works with us. Trust. Are you there?
Yeah, I understand the model, and luckily he's already got traction and proof of concept. And I'm thinking that a model like that, if you're trying to earmark, I didn't even ask you, what is the money for expansion or operations? What kind of capital are you raising, and what is it being used for?
We need the money of expansion, because we have today some people that use our services, but we want more. We want more people, and we want the money to expansion our business.
Okay. That's a partnership model. I think that's a good way of raising that capital and tying it to revenues and performance.
Could you repeat, please?
C'est un partagé. C'est un système de partagé with revenue sharing. So speaking to groups like insurance companies, transportation providers, car leasing groups, they may be interested in, only because if they have a regard for transportation, they may see this as something that is worthwhile investing in, seeing as you already have proof of traction. I also think that something like this, you'll probably have a success with raising that capital outside of Gabon.
Yes, that is what our startup needs to raise finance outside Gabon, because today we have in Gabon a lot of problem of mentality. People don't really know the solution that we bring. Yes, but on va dire que excusez-moi, je vais descendre en français parce que en anglais je m'en sors pas très bien. Donc je disais que ce problème, en fait, c'est un problème au Gabon parce que les populations n'ont pas encore un niveau de mentalité pour comprendre. Voilà. Mais par contre, c'est une solution véritable qui permet aux gens de vraiment se déplacer dans de bonnes situations, qui leur permet de ne pas être stressés au travail, d'arriver à l'heure à leur travail, d'arriver à l'heure à l'université. Mais par contre, comme les gens ne l'ont pas utilisé au Gabon et que c'est une solution qui est développée beaucoup plus en Europe, ben, les gens ont encore du mal avec ça dans leur mentalité. Mais je pense que si on arrive à le partager en Europe, on va facilement lever des capitaux en Europe. Voilà pourquoi en fait nous sommes dans cette cohorte, c'est justement pour permettre, pour que vous puissiez nous permettre en fait de trouver des personnes qui vont nous permettre de lever des fonds au niveau international en fait.
Okay.
So Trust, Viola, should we get Trust to give you some help with that, or you got everything? So Trust.
And anybody else can understand as well, but I think I understand what he's saying.
Okay. Yeah. So Trust, do you want to just repeat a bit what he said for us?
At the end.
Yeah.
Just now.
Yeah.
So he was just pointing out to Viola that the challenge, a huge challenge that they've been facing, is the mentality or the view that people have where he's from in the town and the country, I think. Is that right, Viola?
Yes, it's true. It's good.
Yeah, well, the other thing about Libreville is the roads can be a little bit dangerous sometimes, and transportation can take an awful long time. Et il y a beaucoup d'embouteillage and all of those problems that come into it as well, which if you're speaking to an investor and they know the region, they're going to have a lot of questions and things to say about that. But I like the fact that you've already identified that you're going to have an easier time raising that capital outside of Gabon. But I think that my gut says if you haven't already tried, because the whole point of raising capital, guys, especially from in this particular scenario, is to identify all of the potential options and make sure you go through it. If you don't do that, then it's difficult to raise capital because you might accidentally miss out on an opportunity or a partner who you might not have thought of before. So again, this whole ideation thing that we're talking about, and sharing where would you look for capital for something like this and how would you ensure that it was an attractive option is really all that we're talking about here. And I think he's actually a lot more along the maturity line than if somebody was just starting out trying to get this idea. So questions like, where did Uber and Lyft raise their capital from? Should go to those same groups of individuals. Who is in the bus and manufacturing business? Whose businesses are being disrupted by your kinds of models? That's who you should be going to.
I think one other thing to consider as well, Jean or team, is when you're thinking about engaging investors, there's always an opportunity where the investor will be interested in how are you acquiring new customers and how much does that cost you? Exactly. Right. So when you think about the ability, as you think about, and as you mentioned before, your interest in raising capital to be able to allocate some of it to marketing and branding to get out more of a mass message. Even with that, it's a cost that's associated with individual potential riders. But if you think about a strategy where you might be able to get multiple customers, multiple riders without speaking to them individually, then you can think about companies that have large employee bases where their employees work in varying different parts, whether those are rural parts, whether those are urban parts, that where ride sharing would benefit the company to be able to be responsible for making sure that their employees have transportation to get to work in a consistent manner. So if you're engaging a company, right, that has employees, and that company might even be willing to prepay for a consistent and stable transportation that their employees can get to and from work, might be a strategy that you could utilize to, be able to project, to be able to somewhat project the number of rides that you may get in a period of time. It may enable you to be able to project to an investor how you can scale across regions. And then comes into the question of how are you, and this might be a question that you may have answered already in your business model, but how diverse are you in your ability to accept payments from different currencies and from different payment modes, whether it's Visa, whether it's MasterCard, or any other varying different payment method that a company might use to prepay for those services, as one thing to consider. Because I've had clients throughout the continent, small business clients throughout the continent that have had a large employee bases that were spread out through varying different cities where they were, and transportation to and from work was a challenge for them, and the cost that they were willing to pay to make sure that their employees could get to and from their place of employment. If that's helpful to you as well, in terms of something that you could put a metric around when you're speaking to potential investors to give them confidence that you have the ability to scale and increase your customer base without having to spend money to acquire each individual customer.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. You said it absolutely perfectly.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Larry. Jonathan, is everything clear from Larry?
Yes, everything is clear. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Guys, I'm not sure how much time was allotted because I know I have a hard stop in 4 minutes time.
Yes, I was just about to say that. So we don't want people to feel like they're zoomed out from these sessions. We want to make it really action-packed, and then we act on whatever we talk about. So a bunch of models have been proposed here. We'll have a short follow-up email that we'll send to people that attended to think about this, and then to the startups, specifically a model for you to consider from the experts that are on this call. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Viola. Thank you, Larry. We'll reach out over the next few days. Have a good Friday and enjoy the rest of the week.
And if anybody needs to reach me, LinkedIn is great, or I'm sure they'll make my contact information available. It was a pleasure to meet you all and wish you all good luck.